epidemic levels of all those things you just mentioned are going on.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I would say it's, behind most chronic illness. Now, here's the thing. You talked about mercury being found in our amalgams, in the fillings. Yes, it's true. We have had for over 100 years been using a combination of up to 50%, I believe, mercury in our silver fillings, and there are other heavy metals in there, which people don't understand that they are leaching mercury throughout their life. Anytime they chew, anytime they have hot drinks, there are vapors of organic mercury being absorbed into their bodies. It's no coincidence that dentists who use mercury, these silver fillings, which are unfortunately the majority of dentists, even though, by the way, this was considered dangerous and toxic and outlawed in places in Europe and Sweden, dentists have the highest rates of suicide. And mercury, being so toxic to the brain, which it kills brain cells, also creates symptoms of depression, of anger, irritability. It's just an interesting aside. But what I want to say is that mercury is found in other sources. It is found, it's a byproduct that goes up the chimneys from coal-burning plants, coal-burning power plants. So what happens is that it is spewed into the air, and it falls on the surrounding territory in places like China, which is putting 2 of these big power plants, coal-burning power plants, online every week. They have now discovered that this mercury goes up into the air, catches a ride on the Gulf Stream, and then comes down when the air, precipitates all up and down the West Coast. There is major mercury contamination in San Francisco Bay due to coal-fired plants in China. And it's in the water, it's in the air, it's in the food, and it's in our bodies. So we have coal-burning plants here in the United States. We see huge toxic levels of mercury in those areas. We're getting it from overseas. We're all connected on this planet. We also now know that there are dangerous levels of mercury from fish. And unless you are eating safe fish, would probably be something like sardines, which are very low on the food chain, or the salmon up in the Alaskan waters, which are safer. Any other form of fish most likely has some degree of mercury, which is why there are strict warnings for pregnant women eating fish.
Right. So
we're all getting exposed, is what I'm saying, and
exactly.
From ways we haven't ever realized.
So we know now, okay, and
we have one more thing we have to say. Mercury is also found in vaccinations. It's used in vaccinations as a preservative.
Yeah, thimerosal.
And supposedly being removed, but it's still in most vaccinations, and that becomes extremely deadly because then we're injecting mercury directly into the body of a very vulnerable young infant. And
that's a show in and of itself. We've been talking about that for years. So we know that the heavy metals are unbelievably toxic. Mercury causes every major disease out there. And then you showed me that report, and I was so angry when I saw that this was known. It was a medical study back in the 70s that mercury has an affinity for soaking into the cell wall of candida and yeast. Yes. So here we have, okay, so I want you ladies and you men, okay, but you ladies to think about this. Everybody has candida. The cell walls get filled with mercury. So if you do a chelation therapy, that's not going to take the mercury out of the cell wall. And then if you take a product like our Super Silver that kills off the yeast and the candida, that releases the mercury into the bloodstream. I never knew that. And just knowing that now, oh my God, what have we been doing by encouraging women to go on these candida diets or taking products to kill the yeast and the candida infections and fungus and that, and it just releases the most toxic heavy metal known to mankind into the bloodstream. So
yes, it's almost like candida is helping to scavenge the mercury, but it is absorbing its weight in mercury. And people who have chronic issues with candida really need to be looking at mercury toxicity.
Absolutely. Wow. So what we now know is that's a problem, and that certainly explains. I've had women say that they've used products that helped knock out the candida, and then they felt terrible. Now we know why. It's releasing the mercury. So then you talked about, and I never knew this, and I'm not as good of a researcher as you and don't travel the world. This astounded me when you showed me the proof that these pathogenic infections, fungus and viruses and bacteria and all these things are stimulated by the heavy metal toxicity. Talk about that for a minute. I mean, that's unbelievably important.
This really is coming from the work of just a brilliant man named Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt out of Seattle. And he has found a direct correlation between stored toxins and infectious pathogens. And he states that, this is his quote, for each equivalent of stored toxins, there is an equal amount of pathogenic microorganisms in the body. So if you have a high toxic load in your body,
which is everybody,
the presence of these stored toxins and pathogens will then compromise the immune system and contribute to the growth of the pathogens such as bacteria, viruses, fungus, and parasites. But also the toxins create such an altered pH. It creates an environment that actually allows these pathogens to thrive. Oh. It alters that pH in such a manner that it really lowers the pH, and that's the toxic soup that pathogens love to swim in and thrive and grow in.
Right.
So we have to deal with two issues simultaneously,
which has never been done before. We've had chelation, and then you had, like our product, Super Silver, and that kills every pathogen known to medical science. We never talked about them together. And my God, no wonder people would get better for a while, and the infections would come right back.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. We could talk the whole show about the bad news, but that is the bad news. Your article, which comes with the information pack and everything, which talks about this total body detox. Now, here we have... And it's got studies. If anybody knows about International Health or myself, International Health will not carry any products that don't have at least clinical studies. And we actually have some now that have double-blind and triple-blind medical studies. But what you introduced me to, and I did the same thing you did. I talked to the CEO of the company and the science officer and said, show me the research. It's there. But here we have a combination product. Many people have heard of the naturally occurring substance called zeolite. It's created in nature when a volcanic ash erupts and then hits ocean water. And I've looked at a lot of different zeolite products, not really impressed, tried some of them, and now I know why they weren't that effective, because we didn't also deal with the infections. But zeolite, as far as I can understand and my research into it, is probably the greatest natural chelating agent known to science. Tell me.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And it was created 300 million years ago, as you said, when volcanoes exploded. And it's this crystalline, structured molecule. And zeolite has a unique ability to, and it's a negative charge. So it puts out what we call a negative charge. It has a cage-like structure. So here's what happens. Zeolite acts like a magnet to strongly positively charged molecules, which happen to be found in things like heavy metals and viruses and other toxic substances in the body. So like a magnet, it will attract that toxic substance and capture it inside its cage-like structure. And when it is inside, then that substance is trapped forever and taken out of the body.